All right, Slate. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Shviz, Pedig Beis, Halacha Aleph, and Halacha Beis. We left off on Daf Ches, Amud Aleph, Mamish, all the way on top of the Amid. Quickly going back to the Mishnah, the Tanakam of the Mishnah says that until when is one allowed to plow a state lavan, literally meaning a white field, which is a field in which you plant grains, legumes, or vegetables, Mishatichla Halecha, till when the ground moisture ceases. And on that says Rab Shimon, Nosato Toira, or Toiras kol echad v'yechad biyadai, you're giving me a subjective, or you're giving me a situational shear. We don't like that. So the shear that he gave was Pesach. And we began the Gemara yesterday by saying that it's a Stam Mishnah, following the rule, the way the Marafulda says that Stam Mishnah Rav Meir, that Tanakam is Rav Meir. And therefore, as we already said, we're going to have a problem. The problem will be because just like we had in the first Mishnah, in the first Pedic, there we had a similar machlokes by Yistei Ilon. It was Beishamai that said Kolzman Shuhu Beishamai Kolzman Shuhu Yafal Pri, Kolzman Shuhu Yafal Pri, and on that Beisilo says Atzeres. In other words, Beishamai said what Rav Meir is saying, or Rav Meir is saying what Beishamai is saying. They're giving up some reason. And the problem, like Rab Shimon says over here, Nosato Toiras kol echad v'yechad biyadai. So it's going to chap that Rav Meir is Beishamai, and we don't want to have a Rav Meir to be like Beishamai, that Rab Shimon is Rabbi Silal is Gavaldik. We don't want for people to say like Beishamai because we had a native in Beishamai b'makam Beisilal, right? It's not even a Mishnah. So what we will conclude on Daf Ches Amud Aleph is really, listen to this, Chavre. There is a machlokes between Rav Meir and Rab Shimon in our Mishnah, whether there is a machlokes between Beishamai and Beisilal. Both in the first Mishnah and in our Mishnah, both on the first Pedic and in the second Pedic. When Rav Meir says in our Mishnah, Mishatichla Halechla, he was only quoting Shitas Beishamai. He paskins like Beisilal. What he meant to say is that even though our Mishnah didn't quote a machlokes Beishamai and Beisilal, he says, no, there's a machlokes Beishamai and Beisilal, as we learned in the first Pedic. Over there, Beishamai says, Kol Zman Shu Yafal Pri. Beishamai over here is going to say, Mishatichla Halecha. And Beisilal, which over there says, Adat Seres, will say over here, Adat Pesach. Rav Meir paskins like Beisilal. Rav Meir holds that there is a machlokes Beishamai and Beisilal. Masha Enke Rav Shimon, because of his logic that it can't be that Nosato Toiras kol echad v'yechad biyadai, Rab Shimon says there was never a machlokes Beishamai and Beisilal, not only not in our Mishnah, not in the first Mishnah. According to Rab Shimon, everyone holds Adat Seres, Adat Pesach. That's going to be more or less the Daf Ches Amud Aleph. We're going to have some more details regarding the Mikshois and the Mitalois, as we'll see at the end of the Amid. And on Daf Ches Amud Beis, we're going to start a new halacha. And let me tell you like this, Chavre, we're going to really be opening up a new topic, which is like this. The Mishnah on Amud Beis today and the next Mishnah is going to list a total of 17 agricultural labors that, although they are prohibited to be done on Shemitah midrabanan, they are completely allowed to be done prior to Shviz. I'm not talking about after Rabban Gamliel, which everything is allowed until Shviz. Ad Rosh Hashanah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about prior to Rabban Gamliel's abolishing the decree. When the Isur Shnei Parakim was in effect, don't forget, everything that we spoke about in the last chapter and in this chapter is about plowing. We didn't mention other malachas. So we're going to go through many, many, many different agricultural labors, and we have to become familiarized with it. And we're going to see that they, even though that they are used on Shemitah, they are muted even then, before we abolish, they are muted all the way up until Rosh Hashanah, and there's going to be two reasons why the malachas enumerated will be permitted. Number one, because it's being done to benefit the current crop, the existing crop of the 6th year. This is a topic that we already learned. And number two, because since the isur of that type of labor on Shemitah is only midrabanan, so that in itself will be sometimes the reason the whole isur is only midrabanan on Shemitah. We're not going to include that in the isur of Tosefes Shvi is. Now, one thing that will become clear, and that will clarify the topic that we are starting today with, and that is that the plowing that our Mishnah was talking about, Machloikes, right? Reb Meir, Rab Shimon, is plowing a field that has no crop in it. It's plowing in order to plant. Like as an example, people would plant late in the summer, they would plant those melons, they would plant those gourds, if there's enough moisture in the ground. So the plowing would be to plant. Big difference whether you are plowing on a field that already has an existing crop. That's something a lot more permissible. Al derech, the heter of chodesh eser netiyos, al derech zeh, because something is there, and if you're not going to plow it, it's going to get ruined. We're going to see how far we extend it. Same thing will be over here. Okay, Chaver, without any further ado, it's late. Taf ches amud aleph all the way on the top. So, as we said, since the rule of Stam Mishnah I've made, again, the opening part of the Mishnah is Misha Tichla or Acha Tichla Halecha. That follows Beishamai. Rav Meir follows Beishamai. So he doesn't give a fixed date. He gives, let's say, he gives a situational rule. If there's Lecha, you could. If there's no more moisture, you can't. And Rab Shimon, which is against this idea, you can't give a situational, you can't give a subjective. Rab Shimon follows Beis Hillel. The problem is, is it okay to learn our Mishnah that Rav Meir kebeshamai and Rab Shimon kebeis Hillel? Of course not. Of course not. Beshamai b'mark and Beis Hillel is not even a Mishnah. So the Gemara attempts first one explanation. There are so many different ways of learning the next few lines. We will follow the Rash Sirilio. So says the Gemara, Elam, Rab Meir follows the Mishnah Rishoina. Rab Shimon follows the Mishnah Achroina. What are we talking about? Again, everyone learns differently. Look inside the Rash Sirilio. Keep your finger in the Gemara. And we're going to go back and forth. This whole back and forth will be according to the Rash. It's around 6 lines from the bottom of the Amar on the right column. Like this. The Rav Meir v'Rab Shimon loy pligi. Listen to me, my friends. Rav Meir also holds, like Beis Hillel said in the previous chapter, Adat Seres, not situational, not subjective, a date. Rav Meir holds Shiura delays at Pesach. The Rab Shimon, actually, the reason why Rab Shimon challenges Rav Meir, because when Rav Meir said the words, Misha Tichla Halecha, it was misunderstood. Rav Meir meant until Pesach. Rav Meir was giving a reason. Why until Pesach? What's the yichus of Pesach? Because of Misha Tichla Halecha, because Pesach is the time, more or less, where there's no more moisture. The way the Tanoim in the earlier generations learned this din is that they didn't say the words Ada Pesach. They said the words Acha Tichla Halech. What they meant was Ada Pesach. And because it could be misunderstood, that every person in their field gets to determine when the Leicha is over, because of that, Rab Shimon says, no, you can't say those words. The Lashoin is Sasa moving. Asato Toides Kalach Yadai. Rav Meir naked lashon mishnas harishonim. The way the people learned this part of Torah Shebal Peh was by saying these words: Ad emos haycharshin stay halav and erev shvius mishatichla alecha. No. It's not. First of all, don't say more machma more mekel because it can go in either direction. It can go in either direction, both in that Mishnah and in this Mishnah. Because when Beisila gives a fixed date, could be that by this fixed date there's still moisture. More machmir, could be the moisture ended a few weeks earlier. Beisila gives a definite date. Point is, the Gemara is attempting to say is that the words that the Tanakama Rav Meir says is not that he meant that every person actually measures their field. He didn't mean that. The way the earlier Yidden learned this part of Torah Shebal Peh was using the words Misha Tichla or Acha Tichla Alecha. That's all they're saying. This is great. The Rab Shimon nakat mefurish tahainu ada Pesach. So it's not everyone holds like Beis Hillel. Everyone holds there's a fixed date. That's the way they used to say it. We're learning with the Rashirilio.
So everyone, including Rabbi,
I'm
everyone,
sorry,
including
it
Beit
got
Shammai, am
choppy.
I understanding that there's no machlokes?
That there's no machlokes. No machlokes. Fragt die Gemara, v'chi asinon masnisa, Rav Meir, Commissioner Rishonim, Rav Shimon, Commissioner Achreinu, was still not happy. In other words, why would Rabbi Meir quote a lashon that they changed at some point? In other words, Adarabba, if he agrees with Beis Hillel, if he agrees with Beis Hillel, even though in the earlier generations, the way they quoted Shitas Beis Hillel was giving the reason behind Beis Hillel. So what? That doesn't work. And furthermore, the way the Rashi says, I don't accept that there is no machlokes in between them. Are you telling me there's no machlokes? Look inside the last line on the right column. V'chibala ashma'inan hatana, only Mishnah Rishonim, Mishnah Achreinu, ve'ein shum nafkusa b'neim bitmiya. We don't accept that. We're not going to accept that Rabbeinu HaKadosh put together in a Mishnah machlokes, what that's no machlokes. Just to let us know how they said this then, how they said it later. We reject that. There is a machlokes Rameir and Rab Shimon. And the machlokes is now going to it's huge. Ella answers the Gemara, this is what it is. That Rav Meir shanya machlokes. Rav Meir actually had in his Mesoira that there is a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Rav Meir did not find it necessary to quote Shitas Beis Hillel in our Perek. Why? Because Rav Meir, who's the author, Stam Mishnah Rav Meir, in the first Perek, already quoted Shitas Beis Hillel when it comes to stay Elon. Which is that we don't, Beis Shammai is the one that says, Kol Zman Shu Yafal Lepri. It's the same idea. Well, the Gemara is going to say that explicitly. Yafal Lepri also has to do with moisture. So why is it that said is? Because you already have a tree, you just want to get the moisture deeper in the ground. We're going to learn it inside the Gemara. In other words, Rav Meir holds there's a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Both in Stay Elon, that's all we knew about when we learned the last chapter, and in Stay Lovin, machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. What Rav Meir does is he only quotes Shitas Beis Shammai. He doesn't find it necessary for him to quote Shitas Beis Hillel because he expects for us to know b'derech mamela that just like Beis Hillel argued with Beis Shammai in the first chapter, he argues over here also. He just begins by saying that there is a machlokes. Now Rab Shimon argues with Rav Meir, but he doesn't only argue in Perek Beis. Rab Shimon now is arguing also with Perek Aleph. Rab Shimon says it cannot be that Beis Shammai, even Beis Shammai, would nosato toiras kol echad v'yachad b'yodeh. He would never do that. So there was never machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Not only not concerning stay Lovin, not even concerning stay Elon. According to Rab Shimon, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel hold ad Pesach ad Atzeres. Rab Shimon shanyo kedivrei hakoil gavaldik. Clearly, like
Rabbi.
Yes.
So just to be clear, when Rabbi Shimon is saying these words, Nasata Torah Kol Echad Ve'echad B'Yadai, he's b'chlal not referring to Beis Hillel, or he's saying
he's not very
about. He's talking about the shita of Rabbi Meir in Beis Shammai.
There can be. He's telling Rav Meir that you heard from your teacher that there is a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding this topic. It can be. You know, when a chassid hears something and they say the Rebbe never said it. How do you know what the Rebbe? Maybe the Rebbe did say it. It can't be. Even though I'm not claiming to know every single word the Rebbe said, but that could not be that he said. That's the attitude. Rab Shimon is telling Rav Meir, you heard a Messiah, machlokes Beis Shammai. It cannot be. Look inside the mamish. Look inside the mamish, the middle of the left column of the Rashi Elio. Rab Shimon savar de ma'olam lo yihusker machlokes bein bezu. There's no machlokes in Perek Sheni. There's no machlokes in Perek Rishon. There will never be someone that will be nosato toiras kol echad v'yachad b'yadai. Narvos then v'hache bepesach talia milsa v'hasam bat seres talia milsa v'loi nechreku Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel b'chadish shos tesefer shvius loi be'ilan v'loi beloven. Why? Because the nosato toiras kol echad v'yachad. Finished. That's a gewalt, and that's what the Gemara concludes. In other words, read it inside. That Have man tana ad emosai chorshen stay Elon erev shvi is Now you know that when we opened up this Masechta and we began reading the Mishnah, that entire nusach of the Mishnah was only taught in the Mishnah of Rabbi Meir. Rav Meir, Baram, Ke Rab Shimon, the Rab Shimon also had the Torah Shebal Peh. Guys, it was compiled then. But he had a different nusach. He never had this machlokes. Baram, Ke Rab Shimon, Divrei HaKoil, Ato Atzeres. We're going back to the previous chapter. So when you open up the Masechta, and you want to know what it says in the Mishnah, Machlokes, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon, how to learn the Mishnah. Pasha. Ad Emosai Chorshen Stei Ho'ilin Erev Shvius, Rabbi Shimon says, Ad Atzeres, Nekuda. That's the Mishnah of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir is the one that holds Beishama Yoiminim this and Beisil Yoiminim that. I want to say like this. Ulai. I'm going in, huh? There is a machlokes.
Beneficial for the fruit, and the other one says only until Shavuot.
I know that. And Rab Shimon is saying he never said that. Rab Shimon is saying he never said those words. He never said that. He could not have said it. Exactly, there's a machlokes. In Eruvin, in Babli, Daf Yud Gimel Lamed Beis, just to get the words properly, that regarding Rav Meir, that Amar Abacha Bar Chanina, Golavi Yedua, Lifnei Misha Amar V'Hoya Ha'olam, She'ein B'doirei Sherav Meir K'moisai. He was the greatest of his generation. Pnei Mal Lekova Halachi K'moisai, Shelo Yuchlu Chaveirov La'amid Al Soiv Datoi. He was so amazing that he was able to say Alatome Tar, Umar Lepanam Alator Tame, and whatever you want, he can do it. And really, his name wasn't even Rav Meir. His name was Rab Nehoiroi. Why did they nickname him Rav Meir? Shemeir Einei Chachamim B'Halach. Okay, so let me say like this: Rav Meir, when you go into Bepnimius, every field is different. The deeper you go, it's very, very, very externally. You have to have a set time. You can't give a situational time. But you can argue that if a person is living in a deeper world, there is no such a thing as a cookie cutter size fits all. It doesn't exist. And what's Rab Shimon? Isn't Rab Shimon Pnimiyas HaTorah? So I have a word that Rab Shimon is Raiva Deraiven. It's like you have the outer shell, you have the inner, and then you have the inner of the inner. In the inner of the inner, everyone is equal again. And that's a sikha really of the Rebbe regarding the Aron HaKodesh, that it was gold, and it was wood, and it was gold. The gold is something that never changes. Gold never changes. It never corrodes. It doesn't oxidate like silver stays. So the outer means my behavior, everyone is the same. And the outer, everyone is putting on the same tefillin. In the inner, the kavana, everyone is different. Mamish, everyone has a different avar, different yira, the inner. But the inner of the inner is the Yiddish neshama. And here again, everyone is equal. And this fits. That mirrors the innermost. I am arguing. So why does Rav Meir allow for? Rav Meir tolerates that Beishamai will see everyone can have their own shir. Yeah, because people that live in the Pnimius, everyone is different. Everyone is different. You can't make everyone the same. Our behavior should be the same. Our Pnimius is not the same, but the Pnimius of the Pnimius is weiter the same, huh? The Shammai is more emes. That's what Rav Meir is saying. Shammai that lives in the world of koyach, not of poil, you cannot give one size fit all. And what's Rab Shimon? Rab Shimon goes even deeper. Rab Shimon is called Raiva Diraivan. He's the secret of the secret. He's the root of the root. He's under that which is under. On that level, everyone is equated again. Okay,
Rabbi, how did they measure the moisture? How deep did they go? And
I'm not an agriculturalist.
No, I'm talking about back then. Now then, we have devices that do that.
The Mishnah said, Kolzman, that's the next line. So we learned the Mishnah, the way we'll learn the Gemara over here, that if you look back at the Mishnah is giving one thing, Mishatichna Halecha, and then the Mishnah explains Kolzman Shebnei Ardam Chorshim Litam. How do you know, Kevin? When people are planting. If you call, you can close the window. And by the way, this is the heater. This is the heater. Yes. So it says Kolzman Shebnei Ardam Chorshin. So the Gemara wants to clarify when it says in the Mishnah that you can, Kevin, that you are allowed to plow, stay lovan. When people are plowing to plant melons and gourds, It's not only if you are planting melons and gourds. Loi soiv davar. It's not ending only b'sheyesh loy miksha umutla. There, of course, if you know, because you own the land, this is not a beis hashalchen. You're not adding any water. This is the water that's there. If you know that I can plant still one more turnover of melons and gourds, of course, that's when you can plow, because you're plowing an empty field. The Mishnah is speaking about plowing an empty field in order to plant. So says the Gemara, it's not only if you are going to plant, even if you won't plant. Since people in that region, in that area, will be plowing, then you are also allowed to plow. Look inside the Pnei Moshe before we turn the Amid, the 3 lines from the bottom of the Amid. It's not only, you don't end it with, don't limit it. The Mishnah already said, and we're learning Pshat in the Mishnah that it's the same thing. So why did the Mishnah have to l'shanois oid l'simen hazeh? Why are we giving this other siman? So therefore, the Gemara is explaining the hakam hashmalan. The Mishnah wants to emphasize. You don't plant in your field, Kevan. You don't plant in your field gourds. So you're not the maven. You don't know whether there's lecha. You don't know that. Doesn't matter. Because calls man shebnei adam sheyesh lahem asidim lita mutalei lachrish sedeyu b'dakata l'tzoyrech shishisi. If there is lecha in the ground, plowing is something beneficial for the ground. I want to have a ground in which I can plant. Even before I plant a plant, even before I plan to plant, I want to have a field that's plantable, just in case. People want to have in their shul ashir Torah before davening. They don't come. Doesn't matter. They want to be in a place that if I want to come, it's ready for me. Not because you're going to do it. You want to. If now it's a plantable field, even though you don't even plan to do anything, you don't even own it. You're not a gourd farmer. If people in this region plant gourds, you can plow it. And you can say, I'm plowing it for the 6th year. Whether I'll use it or not, I don't know yet. It's plowed. I want breakfast on my table. You don't eat it. I want it on the table. In the 6th year. You're plowing just in case you'll need it on the 6th year. No, it's Pesach. It's Pesach time. What's that? Okay, now turning to the Chesam Beis, and Rab Shimon challenging this whole, like we just learned, there was never even a machlokes. Why not? Can't be, because nosato Torah kol echad v'echad b'yadoim. Says the Gemara. What is? We're just clarifying what he says. That ze oimer kol alecha shali. One guy will say, well, there's no more lachluchias. So therefore, I can't plow. And that's not something that we want to happen. Even when people are honest, we don't want to have every person having their own Torah. Lois is going to do. We have enough arguments. You understand? You're just going to create chaos. You can't live that way. There has to be one law for everyone. Okay. Elom. So what does Rab Shimon suggest? And the way we said, everyone agrees that Elom stay alav and not Pesach, or stay alav and not Tzeres. The question is why? Why taka? Well, it's the same moisture. It's the same moisture. The moisture is not difference. So ben stay alav and stay ha'ilan. So the Gemara clarifies, and this will be helpful for the next sugya, even though we won't get that far right now. But why do we want to clarify? Stay halavan is dafkas. Our Mishnah is talking about a field that does not have an existing crop. And you know what? When you go from no crop to planting something, you need more moisture. That's why after Pesach, since there is a diminution, there's no more rain anymore, even though there is some lachluchias, it's not enough for you to plant something zero. Masha'enkein, a stay ilan, trees are already there. They are already saturated with the lachluchias. Elama, you want for more moisture to go into it. That's the difference. Stay alavan al yedeshu asid lizoira batchila. Our Mishnah is not talking about. We're going to get that in the next sugya. We're not talking about a field that already has in it items, gourds, melons. No, we're talking about a field that is empty. So therefore, tzarich shetehei, let's go with the girsa, roiv halecha keyemes. You need more. And that more runs out on Pesach. Avos teho ilon, that teho means there are trees already. Al yedei shino toyim mikvar, it's already planted. It's not only that it's already planted, it's that the waters of the rains already went into the tree. But in Narvas, good is good, better is better. You want more. You don't need that much more. You don't need that much more. A little bit more is already going to be very beneficial. And that's Gavaldik. So remember this rule. Now we clarified at the end of Halacha Aleph in the Gemara that Mishnah Aleph, Halacha Aleph is speaking about plowing an unplanted field. This will illuminate challenges that we're going to have in the next sugya. So now we concluded Halacha Aleph. So don't forget, the Masechta began with the laws of Tosefah Shviz. The Mishnah focused specifically on plowing. We mentioned in our words of introduction that when it comes to Parshas Bahar, to the Isur that's written explicitly in the Torah, there are 4 malachas that are awesome. What are the 4 malachas? The Torah speaks about not to sow, not to plant, loy sizra, loy siktzor. Then the Torah speaks about harvesting, and to clarify, the harvesting that's usher doesn't mean I can't take a fruit off the tree. You could. It means harvesting the way a farmer would regularly harvest, gathering everything off the field, and pruning. These are the 4 that Rambam calls them, they are the avos. And unlike in Hilchas Shabbos, where the tuldois are also usher midoiraisa, in Shvius, as a rule, the tuldois are not asur midoraisa; they're asur midrabanan, which means it's correct to say that basically, no agricultural work is allowed to be done on the 7th year, but very few of them will be asur midoraisa. The one that's in between, meaning it's not written explicitly, but it's asur midoraisa, at least the way we are learning the sugya, is plowing. Plowing is not mentioned in Parshas Bahar. So either Rabbi Akiva, plowing is mentioned regarding Shemitah in Parshas Kisisa, B'chodesh or B'chodesh. And even though we are going the way the Gemara says that it's Chodesh of Erev Shvi'is, why did we say that? Because Kotzed cannot be speaking about Shvi'is, because Kotzed, the Torah says, L'siksan in Parshas Bahar. So just like Kotzed is Toisefes, that's the original understanding, Bizman Abayis, so Bechodesh is also before. But if the Torah is asiding Charisha before, Avada, Hashem is prohibiting plowing on. So even though plowing is not mentioned on, and the same thing is Rabbi Yishmael. Even though Rabbi Yishmael, the pasuk in Kisisa is only speaking about Shabbos, Halacha l'Moshe Sinai, that during the times of the Beis Hamikdash you cannot plow before Shvi'is. Also Tosefah Shvi'is. And as we also said, since Halacha l'Moshe Sinai, even though we forgot it, but the Nevi'im Achronim reminded us that Esed Netiyos you can plow until Rosh Hashanah, that implies that other things cannot be plowed, not even before Rosh Hashanah, Bisman Beis Hamikdash Kayim, which implies if you can't do plowing before, then you for sure cannot do plowing on. So most of the Rishonim, not the Rambam, most of the Rishonim hold that you have really 5 agricultural works that are asur midoraisa. The 4 that I mentioned in Bahar, planting, we mentioned the 4, plus plowing. Now there are many other malachas, and they're taka asur, and they are called a tulda. But as a rule, the word tulda in the context of Shavuos is asur midraban.
Rabbi, why can't you plant a completely dead field on the 7th year?
Wait. You're making a good kasha because the malachas are connected to making foodstuff. So let's not get ahead. Now, don't forget, guys, that we are learning the beginning of Shvi'is that began with Tosefah Shvi'is. So what we're learning right now is about Tosefah Shvi'is. What we're learning right now is not about Shemitah. We're still in the beginning. That's what we came in. Let's go in the order of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. At least there's a Seder. We already established, guys, don't forget, that Rabban Gamliel abolished whatever was. Let's connect it to the Churban Abayis. And really, be'emes, when the Mishnah was put together, and in the beginning of the Gemara, people did everything until Shemitah. We know that. So the continuing discussion of our Mishnah and of the next Mishnah is not about the halacha l'maisa when it was put together. They were learning the Torah of how it was before Rabban Gamliel. This is important to remember. So everything until now was Isu Shnei Perakim. You cannot plow. Let's go to Beis Hillel. You cannot plow a stay lovin. Kidding, after Pesach. You cannot plow a stay Elon after Shavuos unless it's the Esen Netiyos. And then something with the gourds that we're going to get back to. We're going to have to clarify that. But what about other malachas? What about other malachas? Do we say that just like Tosefes Shvius is on plowing, does it include other things? That's the topic of this Mishnah. So the Mishnah is going to tell you that there are many other activities that almost all of them, we'll see in the Mishnah, are taka asun midrabanan on Shemitah. Nevertheless, even when we were keeping Tosefes Shvius all the way back to Tzeres and Pesach, these activities were permitted. Why are they going to be permitted? I just want to repeat, there's going to be two rules, and it's going to work with everything. Either because that which you are doing is primarily for the product of the 6th year, or even if you don't have that. Sometimes Chazal are going to say the whole activity is only Asen Midrabanan on the Shemitah year, so we don't have to add to it. Masha Enkin plowing, we are going with the approach that plowing is Asen Midoraisa on the Shemitah year, even though it's not written according to Rabbi, even according to Rabbi Akiva. But Charash B'Katzid is on before, but it's like a Kal V'Chomer. If the Torah is saying you can't even plow before, so there is plowing is different. Plowing is Doiraisa. On plowing, we can make a Tosefes. On the other activities, we don't make Tosefes. And let's read it inside. So, and this and next Mishnah are connected. Number one, fertilizing. Guys, fertilizing is a tool of, I want you to know, of planting, sowing. The Torah says in Bahar, don't seed. Loi sizra. Midrabanan. I know that. On the Shemitah year, you're not allowed to fertilize because fertilizing is a tulda of sowing. And let me tell you something. If you remember, in Hilchas Shabbos, fertilizing on Shabbos is asur doiraisa. And you'll be chayiv chatos. Why? Because it's a tulda of planting. Same thing. Just remember that. And if a tulda on Shemitah would be asen midoiraisa, the way a tulda on Shabbos is asen midoiraisa, then during the time that we added pre-Shvius prohibitions, we would have added this also. But that's the Nakuda. It's not the same issue. Because it's only Asen Midrabanan on the Shemitah year, so one is allowed to be Mezabel. Number two, Ma'ader. Now, Ma'ader is a little bit trickier. I just want to say like this. Ma'ader means in English is to hoe. It doesn't help me. I remember this somewhere. We learned this together. Hoeing and plowing is the same idea. The difference is that plowing is done generally with a behemoth, with an animal and with instruments, and hoeing is a little hand instrument. So first of all, it's already different because we learned about chodesh, we learned about plowing, we learned that plowing you cannot do, but ma'adrin you could do, but only b'mukchois u'midlois. So that's what I wanted to mention, that everything we learned in the previous Mishnah, as the Gemara just concluded about the Isur Charisha, was when you have a field that nothing was in it. Now we're learning about a field that has things in it. So when you have Mikshois and Midlois, they are already existing. So for only these two items, you are allowed to fertilize and you are allowed to hoe until Ad Rosh Hashanah. Now I want to say like this. You know what that implies? Everything will be unpackaged in the Gemara. That implies that all other species, not melons and gourds, which it was common for people to plant them late in summer. It was common. Other than these two items, you are only allowed to fertilize and you're only allowed to hoe only until when plowing is allowed.
Say, like you just said before, like other people are doing it. Like we were saying before, that other people sitting, that was my question there.
There, Mikshois and Midlois that we learned in the previous Mishnah, Rabbi Mendel and Rabbi Vlad, that is only until Atzeres, only until Pesach. No, why? Because
You're planting gourds and melons.
Vlad, if you have an empty field, and that's it, that's the difference. And there we say that since other people would to plant late in the season, so therefore, even though you won't plant, you can plow. But until Mishatichla Halecha is more or less until Pesach. And Beis Hillel says clearly until Pesach. Here we're saying, by the way, we're not saying chodesh. We're not allowing you to plow. We're not allowing you to plow. That's where we differentiate. We're saying you want to hoe, you want to fertilize. So first of all, you should know that fertilizing for sure is midrabanan. How do we view hoeing? Because hoeing is plowing. We'll get to that. It's not exact. Okay. So the Mishnah says that when it comes to these two items, if they already exist, that's the solution. When you have them already in existence, you can fertilize them and you can hoe all the way until Rosh Hashanah. And again, other species, we won't be matir. By other species, you will not be allowed to fertilize and you would not be allowed to hoe, even if they are existing. When would you have to stop? The same time you would have to stop plowing. Remember this.
Rabbi, can you just clarify? You may have said this Mishnah, this whatever the rules that we're learning right now about hoeing and fertilizing, is this talking about?
Read Rabbi Gamliel.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Very important. I said that. That's it. There's so many details.
Yeah, I missed
it. Because after it, listen, Rabbi Gamliel says you can plow until Rosh Hashanah. People were plowing if plowing, which used to be understood that it's Asa D'Oraisa, but by the Churban it changed. Because
So
there's
for
no
sure
more,
you could
once
do
there's
others.
no more Tesefes, there's no more Tesefes. Very good. It's amazing how they were learning Mishnais and Gemara when this was put together. They already were not practicing it.
I know it's kind of annoying, but whatever.
No, that's the beauty because we can relate. Because okay,
It's
now
like all these dafim. It's just like
Mamish.
guys, it wasn't even relevant.
Mamish. Well, can I say something? L'chora, that when Mashiach will come, l'chora, they're gonna reinstate some Tosefes Shvis. And especially, let's go with the way we're learning Agamara, that halacha l'Moshe Messinai, Tosefes Shvi is connected to the Beis Hamikdash. So when the third Beis Hamikdash will be built, we won't even have to reenact it. Then all of these halachas will come back. Mamish. Or if we linked it also, according to some opinions, it has to do when Shemitah's D'Oraisa, not Beis Hamikdash. Same idea. Yovel is going to come back. In our days, in our lives, we're going to see this happening. So Shemitah will come back D'Oraisa. So Tosefes Shvis will come back, and all these dinim will be. You cannot plow, but if you have a gourd, if you have a this, you can do it mizabel uma'adir until next. Now here's a whole other thing. An irrigated field, guys. An irrigated field. That means a field that people add their own water. Any field that has already a crop, guys. Not only mukshois and midlois. Any item that's in your field on the 6th year. Why did you plant it so late? Because you're irrigating it with water. They made the desert here in California blossom. If you already have a crop, then you are allowed to be mezabel. You are allowed to hoe until the Rosh Hashanah. Okay, clear. And what about Charisha? So, and why not Charisha? So that's the question. That's the issue. But let's go with that. Charisha is asur. When the Torah says you can't be chayrish, can't be chayrish. This is already not exactly the same. Next is miyablan. Miyablan means removing a wart. That's the way we're going to learn. I'm saying this because I remember this from the Rambam. I know other Rishonim say otherwise. Certain trees or plants, they have certain, what we can call the wart growing off from them. And it's medicinal. It's beneficial for the tree for it to be removed. So if you're not on the year of Shemitah, then you are allowed to remove it. Which means that on the year of Shvi'is, you may not. We'll see there's a machlokes about that. Because that's already on the year. But before you can do it. Umefarken, we're going to learn mefarken means removing excess leaves. It lightens up the tree. Ma'apkin is when it means dust is when the roots grow out of the ground. They come up from out of the ground. That happens particularly after the winter because the land got frozen and stuff happened. You want the roots to be covered. So they would put dust on the exposed roots. Ma'ashlan means they would fumigate. Fumigate, this we understand today because of worms, because of bugs. All of that can be done by all ad Rosh Hashanah. Says Rab Shimon, 1 second. Ad Rosh Hashanah implies that it may not be done Oh, those are big words in Kavan's picture. Gavali. That it may not be done on the Shemitah year. Says Rab Shimon, af noitel hu es ha'ola min ha'eshkol b'shvius. In other words, mifarkin, according to the Tana Rab Shimon, is even allowed on the Shemitah year. Guys, every step we're going to have to come back to. Next in, misalkin. Now, misalkin means skila. Skila is either to be cycle or not to be cycle. Skila in the context of agricultural work means that on the top of the earth, you have little pebbles and stones. And it's not good for plants. It disturbs the growth. Misalkin means removing all of that steindalach that are on the ground. So you are allowed to be misalkin ad Rosh Hashanah. See, it's amazing. Rab Shimon doesn't make a comment. That means even Rab Shimon is moida that you may not do it right on the seventh year proper. Weiter, mekarsimin. Now, mekarsimin is the word zimur, right? We had the word zimur. Zimur is the word that we used for a vineyard. Zimur, pruning. The word in the holy tongue for pruning of any other tree is called mekarsimin. So mekarsimin, you could prune any tree. Mizardin means thinning the foliage. Mefarkin means removing the leaves. And this, I think, is well, if it's removing branches, why is it not called mekarsimin? So I don't know. So it's another type of work that obviously is called difference. Now umefaslin, that's already a machloikis. Guys, either mefaslin means to remove their decay. Let's go, guys. The Rash in the Mishnah. The Rash in the Mishnah says that umefaslin means chiseling off all of the branches, and he explains zimur or kilus is to cut off some. And then there was an avodah of cutting off all of the branches. You know why they did that? If they needed for the trunk to thicken, when you cut off all the branches, you lose produce that year. It takes a year for it to grow back. We saw this in the vineyard. But when you remove all the branches, what happens is that the trunk itself becomes thicker. And if you remember, we learned 2 days ago that how do you define the maturity of the fig trees you want for the trunks to become? That's mefalsa. All of that can be done until Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Yeshua, it's late. Says Rabbi Yeshua, hold on, that he's more lenient. Now before, Rab Shimon, when he was more lenient, what he said was, no, that this and that can even be done on the 7th year. Rabbi Yeshua is going to be saying the same thing regarding pruning, thinning, and removing all of the branches regarding these 3. But the way he words it is amazing. He says like this, all of these activities, when you remove zirud, yeah? So when you do this, removing the foliage, however you define that, or when you remove all of the branches, when you want to remove that which grew excess on the 5th year, when do you remove it? On the 6th. What you do, when I remove the added branches, what I'm doing is I'm cutting it off on the 6th year, but that's because it grew on the previous year. So just like that which is on the 5th is really being done on the 6th, so too, he's basically saying that pruning, thinning, and removing foliage can be done on the 7th year. But he's explaining why. Because when you remove it on the 7th year, what foliage are you removing? From the 6th. Cain shall shishes, that which grows on the 6th may be removed. And these items are removed on the 7th. So basically, Rabbi Yeshua, like Rab Shimon, he's just using a different lashon, is saying regarding these 3, pruning, thinning, and removing foliage may be done on the 7th year. And the 8th year, you can do any malach, even though it grew on the 7th. Now, Rab Shimon Oimar says Rab Shimon is going to be the most chamer in our Mishnah, that calls man sha'ani d'shoy ba'avodah se'ilon, only when I can be working avodah se'ilon. Guys, that's the first Mishnah. Now we just learned according to Rab Shimon l'divrei hakel, which is ad ha'atzeres. Only then can you do the pisul. Again, let's go with the pisul. Is you're removing all of the branches. Masha'en kain after Shavuos. This taking off all of the branches, Rab Shimon holds, you apply Tosefes Shvis. Of course, bisman that you can't plow. And again, Danny, bisman that you could plow, then you could do it. We'll stop over here.
Shkoyach.